Hi there, I'm Neil, also known as the Hairy Man, and I'm a little bit late to this party, but the production was delayed and I'm not special friends with people who send me the pre-release stuff to review, so this has literally just arrived on my doorstep today. So, what I'm going to be talking about today are these. These are the Warlock tiles for D&D from WizKids. Now, a bit of history. I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons in the early 1980s. And one of the things I remember from back then was watching E.T., the extraterrestrial film. And there's a minor element in there where the older kids were sitting around the table playing Dungeons and Dragons. The book adaptation goes into it in a bit more detail. There's a lot more D&D references in there. But it was different to how I was playing it. Right, where I've been playing it, we've been maybe using some graph paper, and if we were lucky, maybe we had a mini to represent our character. But the kids playing in the film, they had some kind of 3D setup going on, showing this maze-like dungeons that have walls and doors and stuff. I mean, back then you could get printed card tiles, and they still exist today. Wizards of the Coast are still putting them out, but they didn't have that extra dimension to them. See what I did there? So I had a quick look at the stills from the film, and it looks like maybe they're wooden sort of like building blocks with a brickwork paper stuck to them. But back then it looked amazing. And of course, way back in the early 80s, there wasn't any internet, and the hobby industry was geared more towards model railways and historical wargaming, although Dungeons and Dragons was becoming huge. I did find something from a casting company in the 80s called Prince August, and they still exist today, although this particular item is discontinued. And it was a rubber mould that you could make walls and floors and doorways with, and the idea was you filled it up with plaster, it's set, you popped it out, you painted it, you glued them together, and you made yourself a dungeon. And I did find one of those moulds, but I immediately found the shortcoming of the system. In that, if you wanted to cast enough of them for a whole dungeon, you would need to cast hundreds and hundreds of times. And again, because there was no internet to advise us all back then, and I was using the wrong kind of plaster. I was using plaster of Paris rather than a very hard dental plaster. So I found that a lot of the casts that I made would either crack or crumble, and so I just kind of gave up on it. So, we move on a few years, and I found something called the Mage Knight 3D dungeons, which was pretty much what I was always after, actually. The pieces locked together, a bit like a Scalextric track, if I'm honest. And then the wall and the door sections were pushed into holes in the floor tiles. Now, obviously, no one system has ever got everything absolutely right, and the problem with this was everything had to be 90 degree corners, and everything had to be a minimum of 10 feet wide at scale. Which is, it's okay if you're doing homebrew content, because you can then fit the game in with the limitation of the pieces that you're doing. But if you're trying to recreate a published scenario, it makes things a little bit more difficult. So, moving on another few years, and through the wonders of the internet, I discovered something called Hearst Arts, which is like the big brother of the Prince August pieces that I mentioned earlier. It took away some of the limitations by having multiple copies of each floor piece or wall block. And it also had a website which detailed the kind of plaster you needed and gave great hints and tips on making dungeons and buildings and all kinds of other set pieces. And I've invested in quite a few moulds for this over the years and cast an absolute crap ton of dental plaster. And it's beautiful, but it still did tend to be only like 90 degree lines, and unless you're the person that hosts the game, it was difficult, because obviously it was made of plaster, it weighed an absolute ton. But, with some extra bits, I even managed to do a fairly good job of making some set pieces, like one of the hallways in the Tomb of Horrors. And during this time I also came across a company called Dwarven Forge, and loads of you guys will have heard of them because they are like the gold standard of dungeon terrain. It's their stuff that gets used on Critical Role, the most popular D&D stream, and they are beautiful but ever so slightly out of my price range. And so, I'd never found anything that was sort of like in the Goldilocks just right thing. It's like the nearest was the Mage Knight, like stuff for its versatility, but it was very plain. It's like all of the floors were the same, all of the walls were the same, and there was a choice of 2 different styles of door, and the doors were at scale 10 feet across, which when you look at most doors, they're not that. So I was trawling through YouTube, and I found some really good crafting channels that would show you how to make dungeon terrain out of various different bits and pieces. I saw some using cardboard, and I thought that looked okay, but it just wasn't for me. Now, the channel that mainly got me more into crafting was Jeremy from Black Magic Craft, and I ended up doing some stuff with XPS foam, and I've fabricated quite a few builds that have been inspired by him and also by the Tabletop Witchcraft channel. And XPS foam it's light, it's easy to work with, and you can make exactly what it is you're after. And so I've made a fair few bits and pieces, as I say, from that. The other option that's just really become affordable in recent years is 3D printing, and there are many tile sets available either for free or for a fee, and then all you would need to do is to purchase the materials and then obviously the time on your 3D printer. Again, the drawback is the time it takes to produce the pieces, but once that's done you should be okay. I mean, I've also seen in some heavy duty slot together cardboard terrain from Battle Systems, and I've tried that and it's nice, but I didn't get the same kind of feeling that I got with Hearst Arts or the Mage Knight sets. So finally, after all of that preamble, we go on to the actual purpose of the video. Yeah, strange, I know. And that's to review these WizKids D&D and Warlock tiles. So let's get this bad boy open and we'll see what we get. Right, okay, so we should have a picture of the box open now, and you can see there's quite a lot of stuff in there. And just to give you a general bit of information about it. So Warlock tiles are scaled for the current D&D minis, which I think are around about to a 28mm scale. The smallest tile is a 10-foot square, and the walls are what they refer to as half height. Now, the decision to make these walls half height is to make table terrain visible from wherever you're sitting at the table, because not everyone can get a complete view, and the half height walls means that you should be able to see the minis clearly. So, like the examples that are being shown at the moment, it's a similar layout taken from the same angle, but one using a full height wall or using Hearst Arts blocks, and the other one was made using Warlock tiles. So, how do the tiles work? In the box you get a variety of different kind of tiles. So you get a larger tile piece here, which is 10, 5, 10, 50, which is a 20-foot square to scale, and it comes with stone to one side and the wood to the other. You get a lot of the basic 10-foot square tiles. You get a couple of long sort of like corridor stretches of tile, and then you get the walls. So you have 90-degree corner pieces, you have flat sections that clip to the edge, then you've got 2 kinds of doors, both of which are openable. So you've got the big double doors and you've got single doors that clip to the edges of tiles, and these will open and close. Then when you've got tiles that are connected together, you can use the thin slot-in pieces. So you can see here that there's a thin slot-in door. Now these doors are moulded as closed, so they don't open and close, and you've got the slot-in walls. Now we have to remember that these will not work with the larger tile sections because they push in between where the tiles are connected. So how do the tiles connect to each other? So you get a big packet of clips with the box. Now this is going to be my first time doing it, so this could be really embarrassing. Now what I have heard that the clips are quite hard to insert, but apparently rocking them from side to side rather than just trying to shove them in with brute force is the way to go. So what you'd do is you'd take the clip, and you would, now it clicks part of the way into the tile, as you can see there. Now I'm going to do what I've been told about, which is just to rock it to one side and then rock it to the other, and you can see there that the clip is now into the tile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try attaching a wall piece to the tile. So again, I'm just taking the wall piece. You can see there it's got slots in the bottom of it, so I'm pushing it part of the way in, and as you can see there is a gap between in it. It's not fully in yet, so I'm going to push to one, rock it to one side first, and then you can hear that snap, and you can see now that the tile is fitted and it's got the wall attached to it. Now if you're going to have you can see that the pieces on the side, you can still see the slots in there. They have included some dressing pieces that you can just clip into the side of the tile there, and you can see the difference like that. So they do clip together reasonably easily, and you can see they come apart. It's not going to come apart just by sort of like picking it up or holding it by it. They do seem to be very firm. They seem to be very firm, and they've got a good positive click and snap sound when they go together. So I can see that working reasonably well. Oh, I mean, if you don't have a lot of grip strength in your hands, it might be more difficult, but you know, I mean, okay, so I was about to say, you know, I'm not a gorilla by any stretch of the imagination, but I just looked at myself in the camera view screen, and I do actually look like a monkey who's been taught to sit upright and has been strategically shaved. Actually, not very shaved either, but yeah, they seem to be quite easy to clip together, and the actual clips themselves, they feel very they feel very sturdy. They seem to be more like a tough nylon than anything else. Also, so yeah, so you've got that, you've got your walls, you've got your double-sided floor tile, and then you've got your doors, and other parts. So let's get my opinion on this. So obviously it's not my first time of opening up and taking a look at this to camera, but I've got quite a positive opinion on this. I think the double-sided tiles are a great idea because it increases playability, and with the internal thin walls and the doors, it does make preserving the grid a bit simpler. And because they've made the tiles compatible with other systems, they do provide you with another bag of systems where it will clip to other proprietary brands of tiles. So that's really good, because if you've already gone along the 3D printing route, or you've got some 3D prints of a different set of tiles, it's not wasted and they're compatible, and you can use them. So looks wise, Obviously, you've got a similar paint quality to that of the WizKids pre-painted minis, and I think that's okay for a D&D tabletop campaign, to be honest. It's a huge step up from cardstock or a battle mat. Now, from what I've seen online, the Dwarven Forge is painted to a higher standard than this. But, you know, I feel we're looking at gaming pieces here rather than a diorama. And price-wise, the Dwarven Forge is way more expensive. And I think that this product was released to be a competitor with Dwarven Forge. And I think that was a conscious decision that making it compatible with other 3D printed tile systems is going to capitalise on that. So, you know, paint job wise, I think it's actually pretty good. You can see there, it's basically a dark base colour with a grey dry brush on it and maybe a wash. And you can see there on the wooden side, similar thing. It's got a very subtle 10-foot grid system in it, particularly in the wooden side. And I think that looks more than adequate for playing D&D with. But got to look at the limitations of this kind of system. You're going to be limited to your everything is based on the 10-foot square because that's the smallest that this goes down to. So again, if we look at a lot of the published D&D adventures, as you're going to get things going off at angles, you're going to get things where it goes down to a 5-foot corridor rather than a 10-foot corridor. And you know, not everything is going to be at these neat 90-degree angles. So the limitations on there, and also, you know, I've heard some people comment that there isn't enough variety. It's like, yes, you've got a wooden floor, yes, you've got a stone floor, and at the time of release, these have only got a sort of like a town style, which is like the Watland Daub half timber Tudor style walls, and you've got the grey dungeon walls. Whereas if you look at Dwarven Forge, it's got many styles. It's got like caverns, lava, woodland, and classic dungeons, kind of things. And now I'm hoping that in future releases, WizKids will sort of like expand open, and I'd really like to see perhaps some irregularly shaped caverns or sewers or lava in future releases. So you know, I can see that, you know, maybe if you have some clip-on walls, but with part of the wall all going out onto the tile, so that you can get that irregular cavern wall shape, but without having to worry about making a tile that isn't perfectly square. So you know, maybe to do like the irregularly shaped walls, and then maybe have just sort of like a cavern texture on one side, and maybe lava or water texture on the other side. I think that would be a really good seller, because hell, I'd buy it. So I did find these relatively easy to put together, and it is nice that using the clip together tiles, you can make up a room in advance. So you can have sort of like off to the side, you can go, oh right, okay, so you come into and just be able to dump a room straight to the table, which you can't really do with Dwarven Forge. They have started to address this by having like trays that you can move the layout in on. But this, I do like the idea of just being able to pick it up and put it down onto the table. I mean, obviously, where Dwarven Forge has the advantage is it's much quicker to disassemble and move the pieces around and get a new layout very quickly. So this set doesn't perform as well as that. So what my intuition is telling me, and I've been wrong before, but I get the feeling that now that D&D have got an official tile set, It might start to influence the way that writers are tasked with creating published content. Perhaps we will get it more regular shapes as part of encounter and locations designs, because then you can have a selling point of yes, if you want to run this adventure, then and if you've got this set, then every room in this adventure can be created with say the dungeon set, and I think that could go a long way as to maybe promote doing like cross promotion on this. Yes, now the overall thing: are these tiles worth the price? And I don't want to sit on the fence, mostly because I get splinters up my arse, but it's really dependent. If you're, say, cash poor but time rich, then maybe casting plaster dungeons or making tiles or buildings from XPS foam, it's very rewarding, and it can be done quite simply with a fairly easy learning curve, which even an idiot like me can get done, and you will get bespoke results. If you want a room that's an octagon, you can have a room that's an octagon, and because you've produced this, it's very satisfying to be able to go, yeah, I made this. And it gives bespoke results that your players will appreciate. It say these couple of rooms that I've made up from the Curse of Strahd module. So one of these is actually, let's put a big spoiler alert up here. So if you're playing Curse of Strahd, then just fast forward a little bit through this and just kind of ignore these bits. Okay, have they gone? Right. Okay, we can talk about them while they're not listening. So yeah, I produced a couple of set piece rooms. One of them being the large pool room underneath the Death House in Curse of Strahd, where the player characters can encounter the Shambling Mound, and the other one is the Undercroft under the church in the village of Barovia, where they encounter the vampire spawned son of the priest who has gone mad down there. So yeah, it was really nice. It was quite rewarding. Unfortunately, I only got to use one of them because we got hit by COVID-19 before I got to use the second one. So we ended up playing D&D using online tool sets. It's handy. It's handy. It's a nice piece, and I feel a certain sense of satisfaction out of making it and sort of like putting it down on the table. I've got the big hipster beard, so I may as well use the hipster phrase. It's the wow factor. So yeah, making your own terrain, it's very satisfying, and your players will appreciate the care that you've put into it. So if you're like me and you've got a bit more cash spare, which I know in these troubled times isn't always the case, but I've been lucky enough to be able to keep working through this crisis, and because I've been able to work from home, thankfully, I've been able to save quite a bit through not having to commute, not driving my vehicle as much. So I was quite happy to drop the money on these. So cost wise, it's like I got these online from Magic Madhouse. And I paid £79 for the starter box of both and that's £79 for the dungeon starter set and £79 for the town starter set. And there are a number of expansions that come in at around £40 each, which is things like stairs and maybe some expansions and some more walls. But I'm going to cover that stuff in a later video because I've really waffled on here and you're all pretty bored of me sitting here wagging my hairy chin at you while I talk about little pieces of plastic. So overall, I'd say you know, if you've got the spare cash to invest in this, it feels good quality. It feels like it will be very hard wearing, and it's certainly a lot lighter than the plaster dungeon scenery that I've made before. Or is it going to be a Dwarven Forge beta? I don't know. I mean, the jury's still out on that one, but I think it's definitely very good for what it is. And if this is something that appeals to you, it's probably going to be well worth it. So, thanks a lot. I'll see you again when I'll be doing some more reviews of this WizKids Warlock tiles, and hopefully coming soon I'll be jumping on another bandwagon where I do a video about how a 5-foot space is bigger than you think. Alright, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll put some layouts up with some royalty free music, so enjoy that, and please like, subscribe. I put a comment in the channel. It all helps me to build my channel up, and you know, maybe if I get big enough, people will start giving me free things to review, and I can come in and take up more of your valuable time. All right, take care, everyone. See you again soon.